Lindsey Graham.
To pick you through voting. I tried to run a campaign that centered on how to defend America against multiple threats, how to rebuild a military that's in decline, how to reestablish our presence in the world that's so desperately needed, how to create a sense of respect and fear in our enemies, and among our friends, a reassurance. I fell short. I'm proud of the effort. Now I'm a citizen, having cast my vote as to who I want to be Commander-in-Chief for that 1% fighting force. I have concluded without any hesitation, without any doubt, that Jeb Bush is ready on day one to be a Commander-in-Chief worthy of the sacrifices of the 1% who have been fighting this war. Last night he said, "I will have their backs." I believe he will. Last night he explained in the best possible terms why we need partners to win a war that we can't afford to lose. To those of you who worry about going it alone, you don't have to worry with Jeb, because he understands that America can't go it alone. But of all others running for president, I think he has the ability to bring the world on board. Mr. Trump doubled down on the idea that we as a nation should ban every Muslim in the world, at least temporarily, from coming to our great country. I can't think of a worse idea in terms of how to fight and win this war. Many of the people running for president are eerily silent on this issue. Last night, I heard from Jeb Bush the right answer, that we need to vet and make sure that those who come from war-torn regions are properly vetted so they don't infiltrate our country to do harm. But we cannot and should not declare war on a religion, because when you do, you make it almost impossible to form the partnerships that are so desperately needed to protect our country. What Jeb Bush understands, I think, better than anyone else, is that this is a religious war, and the only way to win this war is to partner with people in the faith to destroy a common enemy. Last night, he did not talk the most, but he made the most sense. Last night, he demonstrated somebody who, in my view, is ready on day one to be Commander-in-Chief, and a temperament that the next Commander-in-Chief needs to possess. Someone who's thoughtful, quietly resolved to protect America's interest, and capable of reaching out to the world at large to reset a world that is very much in danger. It is not enough to criticize Barack Obama. You have to have an alternative to leading from behind, and Jeb Bush has that alternative. His plan to defeat ISIS is the most comprehensive and well thought out of anyone on both sides of the aisle. And finally, when it comes to speaking up and speaking out about emotional issues like immigration, the thing I admire most about Jeb, and he stayed true to who he is, that he hasn't tried to get ahead in a contested primary by embracing demagoguery. He's not running to be Commander-in-Chief by running people down. He's trying to create the ability to grow our party that desperately needs to grow. Here's what I'm convinced of more than anything else, that if Jeb Bush is President of the United States, he will put the country ahead of the party. That he was the governor of a very diverse state that brought people together. America is a very diverse country, desperately in need of leadership to bring us together. As to South Carolina, we have a reputation of picking the most conservative person who can win. I think Jeb, by any reasonable definition, is a fiscal and social conservative, and above all others, he understands conservatism when it comes to national security. Conservatism when it comes to national security is building a strong military, second to none, and using it smartly, forming alliances that will make us safe over here. Jeb has come to the conclusions I have. You have two choices in fighting this war. Fight it over there smartly, or fight it in our backyard. I've spent most of my adult life in the military. It's been one of the things I'm most proud of. I know those who are fighting this war. I've walked in their shoes. I've spent time trying to learn their world. I would not endorse someone that I did not believe in that would really truly have their backs. So ladies and gentlemen, South Carolina is going to reset this race. On February the 20th, we're going to give Jeb Bush the momentum that he needs and deserves to win the nomination. And to the Republican Party, Jeb Bush is going to be a nominee that can win an election that as a party we can't afford to lose. To the nation, he will be the president that can reset the world, bring us together, and solve hard problems. Above all else, he's a good man who's comfortable in his own skin and who understands truly what makes America great is our diversity. Not who we hate, but what we love. The next President of the United States, Jeb Bush.
Lindsey, thank you so much, General. To my friends and supporters, I'll be very brief. First, Lindsey Graham's a patriot. He loves this country. Just heard it, how he spoke from his heart about what's at stake here. What's at stake is our way of life. The very founding of our country based on freedom and human liberty is what's at stake. The President of the State of the Union address talked about the threat of Islamic terrorism in the way that he typically does, which is the straw man argument. In this case, he made the case something, well, this is not a threat because they can't invade us. That's a total misreading of what this threat is about. Radical Islamic terrorism is a threat to our freedom. They see our freedom as our weakness. And when people are struggling to make ends meet, as they are today, the majority of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. The majority of Americans have less than $1,000 of savings. 63% of Americans can't afford a $500 car repair. In this kind of environment, to attack our freedom would be devastating for our economy, and I think he totally misreads the dangers here. And as Senator Graham said, the way that we win this fight, win this war, is to win it there and to make sure that the homeland is safe. Lindsey Graham's an extraordinary person. We've been friends for a long while. I admire the fact that as a senator he views his job to forge solutions to problems rather than to try to tear things down. And I've learned now at the age of 62 that one of the valuable lessons in life is to know what you don't know. It's a huge advantage, particularly in the ego-laden political world where everybody feels that they've already got it all figured out. Well, the world's too complex for any one person to figure out everything. And here's the kind of guy Lindsey Graham has been. I have sought out his advice even though we were both competitors for the Republican nomination for the presidency. And he gave it. He's consistently done so because he's not doing this for his own ego. He ran because he wanted the voice of a strong national defense and the role of America in the world, the leadership role, to be heard. And while you may not have been successful in terms of electoral politics, you were successful in that regard. And I'm honored to be your student in many ways in that regard. And so I just appreciate the fact that you're involved, and I will continue to seek out your advice. One final point. South Carolina is going to be a really important primary. It always seems to be that way. The table is set by Iowa and New Hampshire, and the direction of campaigns are set here in South Carolina. And here's my pledge. I will campaign with heart and conviction about the need for a strong national defense to rebuild homeland security, and equally important, to make sure that when veterans after serving in the military, that the contract is fulfilled for them. One of the lessons I've had is to seek the best advice from the veterans community, disproportionately, by the way, from South Carolina, where you all have provided me a lot of advice. We were the first campaign to lay out a detailed plan to reform the Department of Veterans Affairs. And I pledge to you all that we will make sure that that is the first priority. It is, to me, disgraceful. It is absolutely disgraceful that even today, with all the scandals, that only 3 people have been fired with the scandalous behavior of having waiting lists be dropped without veterans getting care and people dying. It is a scandal, but yet 3 people have been fired. The Congress has worked to give the department the freedom to be able to have much more leeway in firing people, but yet they haven't embraced it. The procurement systems, the health information systems, the inability of veterans to have choices outside of the veterans' healthcare system, all of that has to change dramatically. And I pledge to you all and to the people of South Carolina, not only will I be a candidate that will advocate, continue to advocate a rebuilding of our military, strengthening of our intelligence capabilities, diplomatically in terms of foreign policy, having an America that leads the world so that we can create peace and security. But back home, the first priority will be to reform health care services for veterans that deserve it more than anybody else that should be receiving government benefits. With that, Lindsey, thank you again for your support. General, thank you for your leadership, not just in the military, but education as well. It was a blast being on the stage last night in South Carolina. Just a quick note, I didn't realize I was doing it, but I made reference to the state that I really appreciate a whole lot, I think 6 times last night. I may have mentioned you. I mentioned Governor Haley, Boeing, which does make planes, by the way, that are sold in China here. Just, I don't know if Mr. Trump on his way out saw the planes that had the painted, the airlines from China. The Citadel and Emmanuel AME. This is an extraordinary community, an extraordinary state with great leaders, and I'm blessed to be a candidate that will campaign really hard here in South Carolina.